Hey y'all, welcome back. I'm Shayna Cersei. I'm so excited to paint with you today. So today we're going to be doing a landscape in kind of a different style than I've done on here before, but similar in some respects to some of the things I've been doing. But if you haven't noticed, I am a serial style hopper. So I love to hop between different styles, trying new things, trying new subject matters, whether it's landscape or florals or animals or portraits, going from loose styles to more stylistic, pen and ink, all of it. I love it all. I love to try new things. So that's kind of what today is about, kind of jumping to this style here. So we're going to be doing a simple stylized desert landscape. You can see I have two kind of samples here. We're going to be using this one as our inspiration. And one of the really fun things about today is we're going to be using colors that are really diluted. So I tend to paint very saturated, but today we're going to do really, really light pastel colors, and we're going to add lots and lots of our white watercolor, which I rarely ever use. But the white is going to give us this really creamy, kind of somewhat opaque style that I don't usually use in watercolor. So let's get our supplies and materials together and get started. And we're going to start with drawing for this one as well. So just to go over supplies really quick, I have a random piece of Fabriano Artistico paper. It's still 100% cotton, although I painted this sample on Canson XL and it came out great. So I have a lot of random pieces of paper in the studio. I just cleaned it and I'm trying to kind of utilize them for tutorials and things like that, so they don't go to waste. So Fabriano Artistico 100% cotton paper is what I'm using, but you can use whatever you have. If you have Arch, if you have the Canson or any other paper, that's fine. I am also going to be using my core watercolor palette. I'll go over colors in just a moment. I have a size 8 Princeton Aqua Elite brush. If you would like links to any of the supplies and materials we use in this video, you can check out the description of this video. Don't forget to also like the video, subscribe to the channel, and check out the description for links to also my studio crew as well as social media, where you can find me on Facebook and on Instagram and things like that. All right, so we have our core, our brush, our paper. I have an extra palette here because I'm gonna be doing lots of big mixing with the white watercolor and my water, and then I just have a number 2 pencil. All right, so let's get started. So we're going to recreate kind of this scene here. This could make a lovely little front of a card. Tiny little vignette watercolor framed would be super sweet, especially if you like modern and minimalist kind of artwork. This could definitely fall into that category. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to find a horizon line, and I'm going to trace that out here, draw that out. And I just kind of divided it almost halfway. The sky is a little bit bigger than the ground line, and that's fine. I am going to put a sun shape up here. Now this sun actually reminds me of, I'm here in the Northeast in the US, and if you're watching this kind of in real time, we just had in Canada these fires that are burning to the north of us. It's really awful, you know, Quebec City, all of that area is like on fire right now, but it's a little better today. They're getting it more under control, but all of the smoke is traveling down to where we are and like settling on top of New York and the region, the whole region. New York City is a mess, but the sun looks like this every day. It's this bright red glowing ball because you're seeing it through this crazy smoky haze. It's nuts. So we're good though. Air quality is terrible, but they just are recommending we stay inside as much as possible. So all the kids' sports and all of that have been canceled, but otherwise, general day-to-day activity is fine. All right, so we have our sun sky and ground. We're gonna add in these textures. So I'm not gonna draw them in. We're just gonna do those organically. I am gonna draw in our cactus, and then these little plants we're gonna just do with our paintbrush. We don't have to draw them in. If you wanna kind of mark out where you want them to go, like with just a little, so you can compositionally make sure it's doing what you want it to do, go ahead and do that. Now our cacti, or cactus, we're just gonna do one. We're gonna put kind of off to the side. So we wanna balance this out. So we have a big feature over here. We're gonna put a big feature over here. So if we did everything on this side and we had nothing over here, it would feel very heavy on this side. And if you're not going for that, you're not trying to force that, you wanna have a balanced composition, you want to balance out kind of where your main objects go. So I'm gonna draw this cactus a little bigger. Cactus are really hard to draw, I have found. I'm gonna make this a little wonky shaped because they're not perfect. And I found with the arms, so the arms that come out, one should they shouldn't be parallel to each other. So like if this one is here, this one should start up higher. And I know this, or I've learned this just by looking at images of them. They seem to never necessarily have perfectly parallel. And then the arms can have arms as well. So if this one wanted to have little arms coming off of it, it can. All right, we're gonna leave it at that. The interior lines you can erase. Bloop, 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 bloop. All right, so we're gonna move on to our colors. Now the colors we're using are typical colors that I use a lot. So Sap Green for the greens, Phthalo Blue for the blues. This is actually a little indigo, but you could stick with Phthalo Blue and some Payne's Gray mixed together. This is Cadmium Red with white in it and a little Diarylide or Gamboge yellow. So that's pretty much it. And we just mix them with white and do varying values of them. All right. And you know what? I'm gonna, since I put this one down here, I'm actually gonna draw a little tiny cactus up here on the horizon. I'm gonna make this a little thinner here. I highly recommend looking at like pictures of cactus online because I'm not looking at a reference photo right now, but I often have to really get my mind to do what it's supposed to do. All right, so I'm gonna erase this horizon line completely. I want it to be almost non-existent. Just you kind of know where it's been. And I'm gonna lighten up these cacti a lot and our little sun. And I'm not even gonna draw in the other stuff. Okay, so, whoops, sorry for that shake. We're gonna start with our Phthalo Blue. Now I have literally, like, look at my Phthalo Blue. I have no Phthalo Blue. And the one that I ordered was on back order and they canceled the order. And I really want my core Phthalo Blue, but I might have to just buy another brand of it because I'm literally out. All right, so we're gonna take our Phthalo Blue. Phthalo Blue is a really strong color. We don't need a lot of it. I'm gonna water it way down. Sorry, I'm just gonna put that under there so it doesn't bobble as much. Lots of water. And white. So I'm picking up white. And this white is really gonna give it this creamy, more opaque nature to it. Now it looks, you know, much darker than this on here. And I actually just got a little green in there. So I'm gonna start over because I really want this to be a pure color. So Phthalo Blue, some white. There we go, without green in it. Lots of white, and a little phthalo blue. There we go. All right, so it's a really, really light color on the palette. I encourage you to swatch these out when you can. I'm gonna go over where the sun is. This is gonna be really subtle. You might not be able to even really see it on camera, but I promise you, you want that effect. So I am gonna go around, actually I'm gonna go in front of my cactus. I'm not too worried about the cactus in the background. I'm gonna go right around that. And we're just doing an even wash across the whole thing. I did go right over the cactus. This is such a light color. I mean, you can probably see the difference between this is white and dry and this has a little color on it. It's super, super subtle. But that's what you want. And then I'm gonna let this dry. You want it to be an even dampness all the way across. You could definitely use even a bigger brush for this. I'm just trying to use one brush for the whole thing, and this will be a better sized brush for the cacti and the little plants. And I am going to pick up Sap Green while that's drying. Again, super strong color, gonna water it way down. Pick up a bunch of white to make this really, really light. More water. More white. I want a really, really light green. And I'm gonna go from the bottom up. And I'm picking up paint and I'm picking up water to spread this. So you can see this is almost even a, gonna be a gradient wash where it's darker at the bottom. I want this to almost be seamless where they meet. So they're so light here that you can barely tell they're two different colors. A little darker towards the bottom. And we're gonna add on other layers to this too with this part, so it'll pop more when we get to that. All right, so we're gonna let those dry and then we're gonna start on the rest of the details of the piece. All right, we're back, camera magic. It is all dry. So now we're gonna tackle some of the texture of the sky in the background. So I'm gonna need, as you can see here, a darker green, but it's still gonna be pretty creamy. We're still gonna add white to it, just more green and white, less water. Now this is very yellowy. I think I'm gonna add a little ultramarine to this to get more of this kind of olivey color. There we go, that's a little bit better, I think, for me. And that's gonna kind of be our cactus, our darker cactus colors too. Okay. Let me add a little more white to this. And now, as you see on here, I think you can see on there, we're gonna add kind of these ground textures. Everything's gonna be parallel to the ground. I'm not gonna be swooping lines or anything like that. We're trying to keep things relatively geometric. We want, you know, pretty like clean strong lines in everything we do. Just gonna stand up here. You can see what I'm doing. There we go. And then I'm going to come from this way. Do a little bit in the middle. And again, you can do whatever it is you want here. Your lines don't have to be exactly like mine. I just try as I go along, try to find a balance or a harmony between my sections. I'm going to leave this because this is going to be covered up by cactus. So I'm going to leave that, kind of should do its thing. There we go. All right, I'm going to rinse that off. Now for the sky, I'm going to do the same thing. I have some of this color made up here already. This was basically indigo and white. You can make this same color with Phthalo, Payne's gray and white, or something very close. And we're gonna do similar to the ground. We're gonna use parallel swooping, or not swooping, because we want them to be parallel to the ground. We want them to be kind of straight across. I'm adding in a little bit more in this one. I have a little bit more space I can cover. This one's even smaller, so I'm just adding in a little bit more to the composition on this one than I did to the original kind of sample piece. All right, that feels good. So I'm gonna let those dry as well. We're gonna move on to actually I'll do the first layer on the cacti, the cactus. I'm gonna use this green, water it down. I want it to be a light color, kind of like this, but maybe a shade darker. So that's pretty good there. I just added more water to our already existing green. I'm gonna fill in the cactus, both of them. We're gonna do a couple of layers. So this is gonna be the highlight, or the first layer. I'm getting a little puddling, so I'm just gonna wipe some paint off my brush. I want just enough paint to be able to absorb into the paper, paint and water, without leaving big puddles, but to keep, a flow and the paint moving. So again, these are very subtle light colors as well, but this is layer one. So we will put in a second layer and maybe a third, probably a third of darker green. So you can see on here, this little section here, that tiny little highlight is what we painted. We just painted the whole thing in. And then when we go back later, we'll paint in the darker colors. All right, so while that's drying, we're gonna move on to our cadmium red. Let's see, I might need to make some space on here. This is why I had to use the palette, because you do need quite a bit of space to mix up these colors with the white. And I'm gonna pull in some white. So we're gonna get this dusty rose pink color with the cadmium red. I'm gonna pull in a little Diarylide yellow. Well, that's a lot. So this is a very orangey color. Add a lot of water to it. You can see in here, this is a very orangey kind of first layer here. So I'm gonna put down this first layer of this orangey peachy color. And we're gonna go back in momentarily. And now, you know where I got this color palette from? In particular, this orange and blue, this super light orange and blue. There's a house that I drive by that has a door this color, and the house is this light blue color. And it just looks like the calmest, serenest house. Not two colors I would ever put together for myself on my house, but it just looks like such a sweet, simple, calm household, cottage. All right, so we're gonna let that dry. Everything's looking pretty flat, but very much in line with what we want in terms of simple, soft color palette shapes. It's relaxing. We're gonna add the darker greens, this darker color here, to start to create some contrast that will help things not look as flat and pop, but still maintain their simple, clean, modern, stylized nature. Okay, let it all dry once again, and we'll come back and finish off with our third and fourth layer. All right, we're back. We're gonna pop back into the green. So we're going with that sap green again. So I have this really dark sap green color, very concentrated, and we're gonna add white to it. But I am gonna add more sap green. I want it to be creamy and opaque, but a darker color. And we have some sun coming from this direction, so I'm gonna leave some highlights. And I think with these cacti, I'm gonna give it a try, but I'm gonna put in some ribbing with some lines. I didn't do it on this one. I kind of left them flat, but I think I'm gonna do it on these with an even darker blue color. So just in a few areas, here, 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 I left a little of that light green color kind of popping out. And what I mean by ribbing, I'll show you, maybe I'll demonstrate on here. I'm gonna have to use this really tiny brush. I'm gonna take like a really dark opaque color, and I'm going to go from top to bottom with these really thin lines. These aren't even coming out. Like this, boom, 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 to give these like the true texture of a cacti. We will get there. All right, let's do this cacti in the back. Just pulling off, I had a lot of puddling there, too much water on my brush. All right, I'm gonna take a little more sap green and a little ultramarine blue, make it even cooler. I'm gonna put it just on the edge here. Some shadow over here. Actually, this whole arm over here is gonna be dark, I've decided. And right here, just a dry brush. blend it out a little bit. All right, same thing back here. Oh, my ice maker just made some ice. Okay, let those dry, and then we'll come back in with the darker ribbon color. So let's put in some light, find some of the lighter green on your palette. I have some sneaking away here. And I'm gonna start to put in the first layer of my little, whatever these plants are called in the desert. Nice spiky little fern-like plants. Now the further away they get, the shorter they will get. And the closer to you they get, the bigger they will be. And you can kind of see some of the texture through them. It's fine. We're going to do some darker layers momentarily. There we go. All right. So let's make our darker colors. Oops. Dry eraser doesn't need to be in there. I'm going to make up some darker colors with ultramarine, sap green, and white. So here's our ultramarine, sap green, so we have a really dark color, and a little white for some opacity and creaminess. Okay. And now I'm going to take, I have a little tiny brush. If you have something, if you have a really good tip on your size 8, or if you have a smaller like size 2 or 3, you can use that. I'm going to use this petite round. It's a 12 out of 0. The only problem with these brushes is you have to reload them like a million times. They don't hold very much water and paint. So I'm going to use this darker color to create these line textures on my cacti. This one further back is going to be lighter. And then the one closer, I feel like this has to go even darker. Okay. I am not a fan of this Fabriano paper. I will say that. It's 100% cotton and it absorbs water greatly. It's a great, very thirsty paper, but it buckles like crazy. Oops, sorry if I got my head in the way. There we go. Oh, and you know what might be maybe cute on this? Would be some little pink flowers at the top where we're going to have to do our sun, our second layer on our sun as well. All right, I'm going to switch back to my size 8 for this darker color for the little spiky plants. And I'm going to add in, so not covering up everything I did, letting some of those lighter colors add some dimension, but definitely adding in some of these darker colors for contrast. There we go. All right, last but not least, let's do some cadmium red again. Some white. Oh, I have to start that over again because I got green in my cadmium red. And we all know what happens when you add green and red together, right? In case you didn't, they cancel each other out and they make brown or gray, depending on what type of green and red you have. All right, I'm gonna add a little yellow to this, make it a little more orangey, a little more red, and a little more white. And a little bit of water. And I'm going to leave some of that edge exposed for like a highlight on that side. I don't know why. I just like it. And last but not least, if you want to, you can add in some shadows on the ground. So I'm just putting in some darker green. Facing kind of away from wherever the sun is. There we go. Making these shadows just a little bit cooler, darker and bluer. There we go. And we're all done with our super serene, stylized, relaxed, calm desert landscape. Let's take off the tape. While I do that, I'll remind you, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. If you like hopping around genres, certainly like I do, there'll be more of that. But stick around for all the different ideas and projects, watercolor lessons, watercolor basics, color mixing, all of that fun stuff while we explore all different types of paintings, content, styles in watercolor painting. So there we are. Here is our sample. Here is our finished piece. I love the color palette of this. It makes me feel so calm and relaxed. Don't forget to check out the description of this video for links to all of my supplies and materials that we use for this, as well as my Studio Crew classroom, my social media, Facebook and Instagram, where you can find other information on and works that I'm working on. And I think that's it. All right, thank you so much for painting with me today. Again, I'm Shayna Cersei. It's always a pleasure to paint with you. Have a wonderful rest of your day and happy painting, y'all.